but looking into Mason's eyes, she believed him. This felt right. This felt like where she was supposed to be. The first drops of rain began to fall. Big and heavy, thunder rumbled overhead. "We should go in," Mason said, but neither of them moved. Daniela looked up at him, rain beginning to dampen her hair. Mason, whatever she was about to say was cut off by a crack of thunder so loud it made her jump. Mason laughed and put his arm around her shoulders, guiding her inside just as the rain began to pour in earnest. Inside, they dried off with kitchen towels, laughing at Daniela. Daniela couldn't remember the last time she had laughed like this freely, without worry, that as the storm raged outside, they sat in the living room. Mason built a fire in the fireplace, and they talked. Daniela found herself telling him things. She hadn't told anyone about the job she had lost, the friends who had abandoned her, and Richard, who had promised forever and left at the first sign of trouble. "No one ever gave without wanting something back," she said bitterly. Mason looked at her thoughtfully. "That's not true," he said. "Not everyone is like that." "Aren't they?" Daniela challenged. "In my experience, people only stick around as long as you're useful to them." "Is that what you think I'm doing?" Mason asked quietly. "Keeping you around because you're useful?" Daniela looked away. She hadn't meant to imply that, but the fear was there that this, too, would end once she had served her purpose. "I don't know," she admitted. "I guess I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop." Mason reached out and gently turned her face back toward him. "There is no other shoe, Daniela. You're welcome here for as long as you want to stay." His eyes were warm and sincere, and Daniela felt something inside her begin to soften. Maybe, just maybe, this was different. Maybe this was real, but the fear still lingered. She had been hurt too many times to trust easily in Mason. Steady, reliable, Mason seemed too good to be true. That night, as the storm continued to rage outside, Daniela lay in bed listening to the rain against the window. She thought about Mason and the way he looked at her, like she mattered, like she was worth something, like she belonged. She wanted to believe it, but a part of her was afraid to hope, afraid that if she let herself care too much, if she let herself believe that this could be home, it would all be taken away, just like everything else had been. But as she drifted off to sleep, another thought came to her that maybe, just maybe, Fox River Farm was where her heart had been leading her all along. Days turned into weeks at Fox River Farm. July faded into August, and the summer heat settled over the countryside like a warm blanket. Daniela found herself falling into a comfortable routine. Mornings were for animal care and garden work. Afternoons were for whatever project Mason needed help with, fixing fences, cleaning out the barn, or organizing the tool shed. Evenings were for cooking, talking, and watching the sunset from the front porch. It was a simple life, but Daniela found herself happier than she'd been in years. The physical work left her tired but satisfied. The fresh air cleared her mind, and Mason's steady presence was a comfort she hadn't known she needed. One morning, as Daniela collected eggs from the chicken coop, she found herself humming a tune her grandmother used to sing. She couldn't remember the last time she had felt light enough to hum. "You have a nice voice," Mason said from the doorway of the coop. Daniela jumped, nearly dropping the basket of eggs. "I didn't hear you come up." Mason smiled. "Sorry, didn't mean to startle you." He nodded at the basket. "Good haul today." "The hens are warming up to me," Daniela said with a smile. "Even old Henrietta let me take her eggs without a fuss." Mason laughed. "She must like you. She usually pecks me half to death." They walked back to the house together, the morning sun warming their backs. Daniela found herself stealing glances at Mason. His profile was strong, his expression peaceful. He seemed so at home here, so comfortable in his own skin. It was something she had always envied in others but had never found for herself. "I was thinking of going into town today," Mason said as they reached the porch. "Need to pick up some supplies. Want to come along?" Daniela hesitated. She hadn't left the farm since arriving. The thought of going into town, of being around other people, made her nervous, but she couldn't hide forever. "Sure," she said finally. "I could use a few things myself." An hour later, they were in Mason's old pickup truck, driving down the country road toward the small town of Riverdale. Daniela watched the landscape roll by, fields of corn and wheat, old farmhouses, the occasional cluster of cows grazing in a pasture. "It's beautiful here," she said. Mason nodded. "Best place on earth, if you ask me. City's got its attractions, but nothing beats this." The town of Riverdale was small but charming, with a main street lined with shops, a diner, and a post office. People waved at Mason as they drove by, and he waved back. "Everyone knows everyone here, huh?" Daniela asked. "Pretty much," Mason replied. "Been that way as long as I can remember." They parked in front of the general store, a large, old-fashioned building with a wooden sign above the door. Inside, it smelled of coffee, spices, and leather. An older woman behind the counter looked up as they entered. "Mason Reed, it's about time you showed your face in town," she called out with a smile. "I was beginning to think you'd turned into a hermit." Mason chuckled. "Been busy with the farm, Mrs. Lewis. You know how it is." Mrs. Lewis's eyes moved to Daniela, curiosity evident in her expression. "And who's this?" "This is Daniela Cruz," Mason said. "She's been helping me out at the farm." Daniela, it's nice to meet you, Mrs. Lewis said, extending her hand. We don't get many new faces around here. Nice to meet you too, Daniela replied, shaking the woman's hand. As Mason gathered the supplies he needed, Daniela wandered through the store, looking at the various items on display. It was unlike any store she'd been to in the city, a mix of groceries, hardware, clothing, and household goods all under one roof. First time in a country store? Mrs. Lewis asked, coming to stand beside her. Daniela nodded. Is it that obvious? Mrs. Lewis smiled kindly. City girl, aren't you? Don't worry, you'll get used to our ways. And you've got a good guide in Mason. He's one of the best men in this county. He's been very kind to me, Daniela said softly. Mrs. Lewis's eyes twinkled. He's got a good heart, that one. Been alone too long, if you ask me. Before Daniela could respond, Mason called her over to help him choose some vegetables for dinner. By the time they had gathered everything they needed and checked out, Daniela's mind was whirling with the implications of Mrs. Lewis's words. Had she been suggesting something about her and Mason? As they loaded the supplies into the truck, Daniela noticed a few people watching them, whispering to each other. She felt her cheeks grow warm. Small town gossip, Mason said, noticing her discomfort. Don't pay it any mind. What are they saying? Daniela asked. Mason shrugged, probably wondering who you are and what you're doing at my farm. Like Mrs. Lewis said, we don't get many new faces around here. They got back in the truck, but instead of heading straight back to the farm, Mason drove to the local diner. Thought we could have lunch here, he said. They make the best burgers in the county. The diner was small but cozy, with red vinyl, booths and a jukebox in the corner. A few heads turned as they entered, but Mason seemed unfazed by the attention. He led Daniela to a booth by the window and they sat down. A waitress approached, her face lighting up at the sight of Mason. Well, look what the cat dragged in. Haven't seen you in ages. Mason, hey Linda, Mason replied with a smile. Been busy. Linda's eyes moved to Daniela, and her smile faltered slightly. And who's your friend? This is Daniela Cruz, Mason said. Daniela, this is Linda Thompson. We went to high school together. Nice to meet you, Daniela said, feeling a strange tension in the air. Linda's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Likewise, what brings you to our little town? Before Daniela could answer, Mason spoke up. Daniela's helping me with the farm. She's got a real knack for gardening. Linda's expression softened slightly. Is that so? Well, we could use some fresh produce at the diner. Maybe you could supply us. Mason could be arranged, Mason replied. Now, how about those famous burgers of yours? As Linda took their orders and walked away, Daniela leaned across the table. I think she likes you, she whispered. Mason looked surprised. Linda, no, we're just old friends. Daniela raised an eyebrow. That's not how she sees it, I think. Mason shook his head, a faint blush coloring his cheeks. You're imagining things. But, as they ate their lunch, Daniela noticed how often Linda came by their table. How she touched Mason's arm when she laughed at something he said. How her eyes followed him. It was clear that Linda Thompson had feelings for Mason Reed, and for some reason that bothered Daniela more than it should have. After lunch, they drove back to the farm in comfortable silence. Daniela watched the countryside roll by, thinking about the day. Alina had designed a curriculum that combined classroom instruction in the converted barn with hands-on experience in the fields. Their first group of students, a mixture of retirees looking for new hobbies, young people interested in sustainable living, and a few serious horticulture enthusiasts, had just completed the 6-week course. I think it went well, Alina said as she and James cleaned up after the graduation celebration. Don't you? Better than well, James replied. Did you see Mrs. Henderson's face when her tomato plants finally produced? She looked like she'd won the lottery, Alina laughed. And Bob Johnson thought he was going to cry when we showed him how to graft apple trees. People are hungry for this, James said, growing serious. For connection to the land. For knowledge that's been lost over generations. And we're giving it back to them, Alina added. One person at a time. The farm was thriving too. The expanded lavender fields were in full bloom, attracting not just bees but tourists who came to take photos and buy their products: soap, sachets, honey, and dried bouquets. The online store Alina had set up was doing better than they'd expected, with orders coming in from across the country. One evening in late summer, as they sat on the porch after a long day of work, James said, I've been thinking about the Jenkins field. What about it? Alina asked, sipping her iced tea. We should start planning what we want to do there, James said. The teaching garden, like we talked about. I've actually been sketching some ideas, Alina admitted. I was thinking we could divide it into different ecosystem zones: woodland, prairie, wetland, and so on. Show people how to work with their natural environment instead of against it. James nodded enthusiastically. And maybe a children's garden too. Something interactive where kids can learn about plants in a fun way. I love that idea, Alina said. We could have child-sized tools, a sensory garden with plants they can touch and smell, maybe even a small maze made of sunflowers. As they continued brainstorming, Alina felt a wave of contentment wash over her. This was what she'd been missing. In her corporate job, the freedom to create something truly meaningful. The joy of working alongside someone who shared her vision. What is it? James asked, noticing her expression. Just thinking about how different my life is now, Alina replied. A year ago, I was sitting in traffic every morning, heading to a job where I was undervalued, dating a man who didn't really see me. Now look at us. James squeezed her hand. I thank my lucky stars every day that you drove up that driveway looking for temporary work. The best kind of temporary, Alina said with a smile, the kind that turns into forever. The next morning Alina woke, feeling strangely nauseated. She barely made it to the bathroom before getting sick. Are you okay? James called through the door, concern in his voice. Fine, Alina managed. Must have been something I ate. But the same thing happened the next day, and the day after that. Always in the morning, always followed by a return to normal by midday. After a week of this, James put his foot down. You need to see a doctor. It's probably just a bug, Alina protested. Please. James's eyes were worried. For me, Alina relented and made an appointment with the local doctor. After examining her and running some tests, Dr. Williams came back into the exam room with a smile. Well, Mrs. Rowe, I can tell you exactly what's causing your morning sickness, she said. You're pregnant. About 6 weeks along, I'd estimate. Alina stared at her in shock. Pregnant, but we weren't. I mean, we talked about waiting a year or two. Life has its own timeline sometimes. Dr. Williams said kindly. Are you happy about this news? Yes, Alina said, realizing it. What was true? Yes, I am. Just surprised. That's normal, the doctor assured her. I'll want to see you again in a month. In the meantime, take these prenatal vitamins and try to rest when you need to. Alina drove home in a daze, her mind racing. A baby, a tiny life, half her and half James, growing inside her. How would James react? They'd talked about children in the abstract someday, after the farm was more established, after the educational program was running smoothly. When she pulled up to the farm, James was waiting on the porch, clearly anxious. What did the doctor say? Are you okay? Alina got out of the car slowly. I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. Then what is it? Why have you been sick? Alina took a deep breath. James, I'm pregnant. His eyes widened. For a moment he seemed frozen in place. Then a slow smile spread across his face. Pregnant? Really? Alina nodded, suddenly nervous. I know we said we'd wait, but she didn't get to finish. James swept her up in his arms, spinning her around on the driveway. A baby. We're having a baby. His joy was infectious. Alina laughed, relief washing over her. So you're happy about this? Happy doesn't begin to cover it, James said, setting her down gently. Ecstatic, terrified, overwhelmed, but mostly just in awe. He placed his hand reverently on her still flat stomach. Our child is in there, our future, due in early April, Alina told him, just in time for spring planting. James's eyes filled with tears. Perfect timing. That evening they sat on the porch swing, James's arm protectively around Alina, both lost in thoughts of the future. We'll need to convert the office into a nursery, James said, and maybe hire some help for the busy season next year. One step at a time, Alina laughed. We have months to prepare. I know, James said. I just want everything to be perfect. It won't be perfect, Alina said realistically, but it will be ours. That's better than perfect. As summer faded into fall, Alina's body began to change. The morning sickness passed, replaced by a new roundness to her figure and a glow that made her more beautiful than ever in James's eyes. They worked side by side, preparing the farm for winter, planting cover crops in the fields, mulching the perennial beds, harvesting the last of the vegetables before frost. Alina moved more slowly now, taking breaks when she needed them, while James watched over her with loving concern. I'm pregnant, not made of glass, she would tease when he tried to take heavy tools from her hands. Humor me, he would reply. It's my first time being a father. In October, they began work on the nursery. James insisted on making the crib himself, carefully selecting wood from the old oak tree that had fallen in last year's storm. This way, our child will sleep in a piece of the farm, he explained as he sanded the wood smooth, connected to this land from the very beginning. Alina, painting the walls a soft green, smiled at his sentiment. Just like we are. As the days grew shorter and the nights colder, they spent evenings by the fire, making plans and dreaming dreams for their child. What if it's a girl? James wondered, his hand on Alina's growing belly. A daughter with your eyes and determination. Or a boy with your gentle heart, Alina countered. Either way, this child will be loved. And free, James added, free to choose their own path, whether it's on this farm or somewhere else entirely. Alina looked at him in surprise. You'd be okay with that, if our child didn't want to take over the farm someday? James nodded slowly. I want them to find what makes them happy, just like you did. Just like we both did, Alina corrected, leaning against him. Together. In December, they hosted a holiday workshop at the farm, teaching people how to make wreaths and garlands from natural materials. Alina, now visibly pregnant, demonstrated techniques while James helped participants select materials from piles of evergreen boughs, dried flowers, and berries. You're glowing, one of the participants, an older woman named Ruth, told Elena. Motherhood suits you already. Thank you, Elena replied, resting a hand on her rounded belly. It's all still a bit surreal. The best things often are, Ruth said wisely. My George and I have been married 52 years now, started out on a farm not unlike this one. Raised 3 children, weathered droughts and floods and all manner of hardships. She looked around the decorated barn with appreciation. But it's a good life, a real life. That's exactly what I've found here, Elena agreed. Reality, not fantasy. Hard work, not empty promises. After the workshop, as they cleaned up together, James said, I saw you talking with Ruth. What wisdom was she sharing? Just confirmation that we're on the right path, Elena replied. That what we're building here matters. James pulled her close, his hand finding the spot where their baby had been kicking. I never doubted it. As winter deepened, Golden Meadow Farm was transformed by snow and ice into a glittering wonderland. Elena and James spent the coldest days inside, working on plans for the coming spring, the new teaching garden in the Jenkins field, expanded workshop offerings, and of course, preparations for the baby. I was thinking, Elena said one evening as they sat by the fire, about names for the baby. I've been thinking about that too, James admitted. If it's a girl, Elena continued, what about Lavender, after the field where you proposed? James smiled. Lavender Row. It has a nice ring to it. And if it's a boy, James considered for a moment, we should talk to a lawyer. The closest attorney was in the county seat 30 miles away. They made an appointment for the next day and drove there together, the letter like a weight between them. The lawyer, a nonsense woman named Helen Porter, read the document carefully, her expression giving nothing away. Breach of promise suits are outdated, she said finally. Most states don't even recognize them anymore. An alienation of affection is a stretch at best, especially since you've stated you left before meeting Mr. Blake. She looked at Nayeli directly. Was there a formal engagement? Announcements in newspapers, engagement party, anything like that? Nayeli shook her head. No, Victor and my father made the arrangement. I never agreed to it publicly. Did you accept an engagement ring? Any valuable gifts specifically given as part of the engagement? Again, Nayeli shook her head. He gave me some jewelry, but I left it all behind when I ran. Helen made some notes. What about written agreements? Did you sign anything? Even something that seemed unrelated at the time? Nayeli thought carefully. I don't think so. Victor always dealt with my father. I was just expected to go along with it. Your father may have signed agreements, Helen said. But unless you were a minor at the time, which you weren't, they wouldn't be binding on you. She tapped her pen on the desk. This is mostly intimidation tactics, designed to frighten you into returning. The legal claims are weak at best. Relief washed over Nayeli, so we can ignore it. Not entirely, Helen cautioned. Mr. Mendoza sounds like a man with resources and connections. He could make things difficult, even with a weak case. My recommendation is to proceed with your wedding as planned. That will establish new legal protections, and I'll draft a response to this letter making it clear that you never consented to any engagement with Mr. Mendoza. What about the alienation of affection claim against Rowan? Nayeli asked worriedly. Even weaker, Helen assured them. Mr. Blake didn't entice you away from an existing relationship. You had already left Mr. Mendoza before you met. They left the lawyer's office feeling somewhat reassured. But the shadow of Victor's threat still hung over what should have been the happiest time of their lives. Don't let him win, Rowan said as they drove back to the farm. That's what he wants, to spoil this for us. To make you afraid again. Nayeli knew he was right. She reached over and squeezed his hand. Our wedding is going to be perfect, she said with determination. Victor Mendoza has taken enough from me. He doesn't get to take this to the final days before the wedding passed in a whirlwind of activity. The weather forecast promised a perfect early autumn day. Martha and the other women from town transformed the pond area into a rustic but beautiful wedding venue with wildflowers, ribbon, and twinkling lights strung in the trees. The night before the wedding, tradition dictated that Nayeli stay somewhere other than the farmhouse. Martha insisted she come to her home. It's bad luck for the groom to see the bride before the wedding, she declared, brooking no argument. Nayeli was touched by the gesture but hated to leave Rowan alone, especially with the threat of Victor's legal action hanging over them. Will you be okay? She asked him as she packed an overnight bag. Rowan smiled, touching her cheek gently. I'll be fine. Frank and some of the men are coming over for a sort of impromptu bachelor party. Nothing wild, he added quickly, seeing her expression. Just cards and maybe a few beers. I just worry, Nayeli admitted. What if Victor tries something while we're apart? He won't, Rowan said confidently. And even if he did, he'd have to go through Frank and half the men in town to get to either of us. We're not alone anymore. Remember? Nayeli nodded, trying to let go of her worry. One more night, she said. And then we'll be husband and wife. One more night, Rowan agreed, pulling her into his arms for a lingering kiss, then forever. Martha's house was warm and welcoming, filled with the smells of baking and the sounds of women laughing. Several of the ladies from town had gathered for what Martha called a proper send-off to single life, complete with gifts, advice, some of it making Nayeli blush, and stories of their own weddings for the first time. Nayeli didn't feel the absence of her own mother quite so keenly. These women had taken her in, accepted her, supported her in ways her own family never had. Their warmth and genuine affection wrapped around her like a comfortable blanket. Late that night, after the other women had gone home and Martha had retired, to bed, Nayeli sat by the window in the guest room, looking out at the stars. Tomorrow she would become Rowan's wife. The thought filled her with a happiness so complete it almost frightened her. She was about to turn away from the window when the flash of headlights on the road caught her attention. A car was approaching Martha's house, moving slowly, as if the driver was looking for something. Nayeli's heart began to pound. It was well past midnight. No one should be out driving on the rural roads at this hour. The car, a dark sedan she didn't recognize, stopped in front of Martha's house. Nayeli stepped back from the window, suddenly afraid. Was it Victor? Had he found out where she was staying? Should she wake Martha? Before she could decide, the car door opened and a figure stepped out. In the dim light of the street lamp, Nayeli could make out a woman, not a man. She frowned, confused, then gasped as the woman stepped into better light. It was her mother. Nayeli froze, watching as Elena Santos looked up at the house, uncertainty in her posture. How had she found her? What was she doing here, on the night before the wedding? Moving on instinct, Nayeli hurried downstairs and opened the front door before her mother could knock and wake the household. Elena startled at her sudden appearance. "Nayeli," she said, her voice a mixture of relief and apprehension. "I wasn't sure if I had the right house." "What are you doing here?" Nayeli asked, her voice low. "How did you find me?" Elena glanced around. Nervously, "Can we talk, please?" Nayeli hesitated, then stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind her. She didn't invite her mother inside. This wasn't her house, and she wouldn't disrespect Martha's hospitality by bringing in someone who might mean her harm. "How did you find me?" she repeated. Elena sighed. "Victor has been looking for you for months. When his lawyers sent that letter, they had this town's name on it. I did some research, made some calls. It's a small town. When I asked about a young woman who'd recently arrived, someone mentioned you were staying with a Mrs. Wilson the night before your wedding." Nayeli's jaw tightened. "So Victor sent you to bring me back?" "No," Elena said quickly. "He doesn't know I'm here. No one does." She took a step closer. "Nayeli, is it true? Are you getting married tomorrow?" Nayeli nodded, instinctively touching the ring on her finger. "Yes, to a good man who respects me, who gives me choices instead of orders." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry for everything, for not standing up to your father, for not protecting you from Victor." The words Nayeli had longed to hear for months now seemed hollow. "Why are you here, Mother? To stop the wedding? To tell me I'm making a mistake?" "No," Elena said firmly. "I'm here because ... because I wanted to see you, to make sure you're okay, to tell you that I understand why you ran." She swallowed hard, "and to ask if I could attend your wedding." Nayeli stared at her mother in shock. "You want to attend my wedding? Does father know about this?" Elena shook her head. "No, he thinks I'm visiting your aunt in Santa Fe. He ... he wouldn't understand." "And you do?" Nayeli challenged. "I'm trying to," Elena said, her voice breaking. "When you disappeared, I was terrified. I thought something terrible had happened to you. Then when we realized you had run away, your father was furious, but I was ... relieved. Relieved that you had escaped a fate I helped push you toward." Nayeli's anger began to soften at the genuine remorse in her mother's voice. "Why didn't you ever say anything? Why did you let him arrange that marriage when you knew what kind of man Victor is?" "Because I was a coward," Elena admitted. "Your father has always made the decisions in our family. I never learned to stand up to him, to fight for what I knew was right." She reached out tentatively, not quite touching Nayeli. "But seeing you now, hearing that you found someone who treats you well, I'm proud of you, Nayeli. Proud that you had the courage I never did." Tears stung Nayeli's eyes. She had imagined this conversation so many times, confronting her mother, demanding answers, but now that it was happening, she found her anger giving way to a complicated mixture of hurt, understanding, and cautious hope. "How do I know this isn't a trick?" she asked. "How do I know Victor didn't send you to find me, to report back to him?" "You don't," Elena acknowledged. "You have no reason to trust me, not after I failed you so badly." She opened her purse and took out a small wrapped package. "But I brought you this. A wedding gift, and maybe ... a peace offering." Nayeli took the package warily and unwrapped it. "Marge at the post office told me she's been there over a week now." "About time," the other replied. "Ben's been alone too long since David passed. Never seen him smile much until yesterday when they came into the general store together." Rosa felt her cheeks warm, but she kept her eyes on the counter, pretending not to hear. "She's pretty, too," the first woman continued. "Looks at him like he hung the moon. Reminds me of how my Henry used to look at me. Well, I hope it works out. That farm needs children running around it again. Been too quiet out there." Roast sandwich arrived, saving her from hearing more. But the woman's words stuck with her. Did she really look at Ben that way? And was it that obvious to everyone? After lunch, Rosa gathered her courage and walked to the Golden Acres in Mark was, in the small lobby, typing on his laptop. His face lit up when he saw her. Rosa, you came. He stood, kissing her cheek. You look ... different. Rosa glanced down at her simple jeans and t-shirt. It's more practical for the farm. Mark's smile tightened. Right, the farm. He gestured to a small seating area. Shall we talk? They sat, and for a moment awkward silence stretched between them. Mark broke it first. I've been thinking about what you said. About not telling you in person. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I want to do this right this time. He opened the box to reveal a diamond ring larger and more ostentatious than her original engagement ring. Rosa Linus, will you forgive me and agree to be my wife? Rosa stared at the ring, feeling strangely detached. A week ago this gesture might have moved her. Now it felt hollow, like a scene from a play. Mark, I can't just pick up where we left off, she said carefully. You hurt me deeply. You betrayed my trust. I know, he said, reaching for her hand. But people make mistakes. I made a terrible one. I'm asking for a second chance. Rosa looked into his eyes, searching for something sincerity, genuine remorse, love. What she saw was determination, the look of a man not used to losing. What about Jen? She asked. My supposed best friend that you cheated with. Mark hesitated. That's over. It was never serious, Rosa. Just a stupid mistake. Did you love her? It was just ... physical. It meant nothing. The casual cruelty of his words struck Rosa. So you threw away our relationship, hurt two women, for something that meant nothing. Mark had the grace to look ashamed. I told you, I was stupid, but I've learned my lesson. It will never happen again. Rosa sat back, studying the man she'd once thought she knew so well. Tell me something, Mark. What do you love about me? Not what I do for you or how I make you look or the life we planned. What do you love about me, specifically? Mark's confident expression faltered. What kind of question is that? I love everything about you. Your beauty, your style, your ambition. Those aren't things about me, Rosa said softly. Those are things about how I appear to others. Fine, Mark said, irritation creeping into his voice. I love how organized you are, how you always know the right wine to order, how you charm my business associates. Each word was another revelation. 3 years, together, and he didn't know her at all. Mark, Rosa said gently, I don't think you love me. I think you'd love the idea of me. The perfect wife for your perfect life. That's not fair, Mark protested. I came all this way to find you. I'm offering you everything we planned. I know, Rosa said. And a week ago, I might have said yes, but something's changed. She looked down at her hands. I've changed because of him, the farmer. Mark's voice hardened. Rosa, be realistic. What kind of life could you have here? This is a dying town in the middle of nowhere. Maybe, Rosa conceded. But for the first time in years, I feel like myself here. Not someone's fiancé or employee or daughter. Just Rosa. Mark stared at her, disbelief in his eyes. You're throwing away everything for some country fantasy that won't last a month. The novelty will wear off, Rosa. And then what? I don't know, Rosa admitted. But I need to find out. She stood up, resolution filling her. I'm sorry, Mark. I can't marry you. Not now, maybe not ever. I need to figure out who I am and what I want. Mark's face hardened. You'll regret this. When you're collecting eggs and milking cows at 5 a.m., you'll remember the life you could have had. Maybe, Rosa said, surprised by the calm certainty she felt. But it will be my choice. She walked out of the inn, feeling lighter than she had. In weeks, the sun was warm on her face as she headed toward the hardware store to find Ben. Ben was loading bags of feed into his truck when Rosa found him. He looked up, his expression cautious. How did it go? I told him no, Rosa said simply. I'm not going back. Relief and something else, hope perhaps, flashed across Ben's face. You're sure? Rosa nodded. I'm sure. I'm not ready to jump into anything new yet. I need time to heal, to find myself again, but I know I can't go backwards. Ben set down the bag he was holding and stepped closer to her in the farm. Are you staying if you'll have me? Rosa said. Just for a while longer until I figure things out. Ben's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. I'd like that. They drove back to Haven Hill Farm in comfortable silence. As they turned down the familiar gravel drive, Rosa felt a sense of rightness, of coming home. That evening, after dinner, they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. The air was sweet with the scent of summer flowers. I kept thinking about something while I was in town today, Rosa said. Those first few days I was here, you didn't ask me any questions. You just let me be. Ben nodded. Everyone deserves space to find their own answers. But there's something I want to tell you now, Rosa continued. About why Mark's letter hurt so much. He took a deep breath. It wasn't just that he cheated. It was that he did it with Jen, my best friend since college. The two people I trusted most in the world betrayed me together. Ben's expression darkened with anger on her behalf. I'm sorry, Rosa. That's a double betrayal. It made me question everything, Rosa admitted. Every conversation, every moment we shared. Were they laughing at me behind my back? How long had it been going on? Was anything real? That's the worst part of betrayal, Ben said. The doubts it plants. Yes, Rosa agreed. And today, when Mark proposed again with an even bigger ring, I realized something. He doesn't know me at all. He couldn't even tell me what he loves about me. Not really. Ben was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I could. Rosa looked at him, heart skipping. You could what? Tell you what I love about you. His voice was soft but sure. Even though we've only known each other a short time, Rosa felt warmth spread through her chest. Like what? Ben turned to face her fully. I love how you talk to the chickens every morning, apologizing for taking their eggs. I love how your nose scrunches when you're concentrating on a task. I love your honesty even when the truth is hard. I love how brave you are, facing your pain instead of running from it. Tears welled in Rosa's eyes. Each observation was small but true, things she didn't even realize about herself. Ben, she whispered, not knowing what else to say. I'm not pushing, he said quickly. I know you need time. I'm just telling you what I see when I look at you. Rosa reached for his hand, threading her fingers through his. Thank you for seeing me. They sat in silence as darkness fell, fireflies beginning to flicker in the fields. Something had shifted between them, a door opening to possibilities. The next morning, Rosa was in the kitchen making coffee when her phone rang. It was her mother. Rosa, what's going on? Her mother demanded. Mark called me, very upset. He said you're throwing your life away to stay on some farm with a man you barely know. Rosa sighed. It's not like that, Mom. Then what is it like? Help me understand, sweetheart. You disappear after your wedding is cancelled, and now you're refusing to come home. Rosa looked out the window, where she could see Ben in the garden, kneeling in the dirt as he planted new seedlings. I needed space to figure things out, Mom, and I found something unexpected here. Peace, clarity. What about your business? Your clients, your life? They'll still be there when I'm ready, Rosa said. For now, I need this time. Her mother was silent for a moment. Is he good to you? This farmer, the best, Rosa said softly. He sees me, Mom, the real me. Another pause. Mark never did, her mother admitted. I tried to tell you. I know I should have listened. Well, I raised you to follow your heart, her mother said with a sigh. Just be careful, Rosa. Don't trade one hasty decision for another. I won't, Rosa promised. I'm taking things slow, but I'm staying here for now. After hanging up, Rosa poured 2 cups of coffee and carried them outside to where Ben was working. He looked up with a smile that warmed her from the inside out. Morning, he said, accepting the coffee. Sleep well. Better than I have in months, Rosa replied, settling beside him on the ground. What are you planting? Tomato seedlings too, to replace the ones damaged in the storm. He showed her how to gently place them in the soil, like this. They worked side by side, planting new life in the garden. As Rosa patted soil around a fragile seedling, she felt a sense of planting new beginnings for herself as well. I talked to my mom, she said. She's worried, but she understands. I need this time. Ben nodded. And Mark? Do you think he'll come back? Probably not, Rosa said. His pride won't let him. Besides, he has a company to run, a life in the city, and you. Ben asked carefully. Will you miss that life? Rosa considered the question seriously. Parts of it, my work, some friends, but not enough to go back. Not yet anyway. Ben's hands stilled in the dirt. Rosa, I need to be honest with you. I'm falling for you. I know it's fast. I know you're still healing. But I want you to know where I stand. Rosa's heart quickened. The same feelings had been growing in her. Impossible to ignore. It is fast, she agreed. Too fast. Maybe, Ben conceded. But sometimes the heart knows what it wants before the head catches up. Rosa reached out, touching his face gently, leaving a smudge of dirt on his cheek. I feel it too, Ben, but I'm scared. I just had my heart broken. I know, he said, covering her hand with his. And I would never rush you. We have time. Time, such a simple gift, but exactly what Rosa needed. Time to heal, to grow, to learn who she was outside of Mark's shadow. And maybe time to see if what was growing between her and Ben was real or just a beautiful escape from pain. Thank you, she whispered. Ben smiled, that warm, genuine smile that reached his eyes. For what? For being patient, for seeing me, for turning my tears into smiles just like you promised. Ben leaned forward, his forehead touching hers in a gesture both intimate and respectful. The best is yet to come, Rosa, I promise you that. As they returned to their planting, Rosa felt something unfurl inside her. Hope, fragile but persistent, like the seedlings taking root in the warm earth around them. 1 week turned into 2, and 2 weeks into a month. Summer settled over Haven Hill Farm, bringing longer days and warmer nights. Rosa fell into the rhythm of farm life, waking with the sun and falling asleep tired but content. Each day brought new discoveries. She learned to make jam from the berries they picked together, laughing when she spilled sticky sweetness all over the kitchen counter. She mastered the art of hanging laundry on the line, taking satisfaction in the fresh scent of sun-dried clothes. She even overcame her fear of the chickens, now greeting them by name each morning as she collected eggs. But most importantly, she was learning about herself, who she was when she wasn't trying to be what someone else wanted. She was stronger than she'd thought, more capable. And she was falling deeply in love with Ben Walker. They took things slowly, just as they'd agreed. Their relationship grew in small moments, hands brushing while passing tools in the garden, conversations that stretched late into the evening, shared smiles across the dinner table. They hadn't kissed yet, though Rosa thought about it often. Ben was keeping his promise to give her time, letting her set the pace. One morning in late June, Rosa sat on the porch swing with a cup of coffee, watching Ben repair the tractor in the yard. Her phone rang, her assistant from the design firm in the city. "Rosa, I hate to bother you during your time off," Emily said, "but the Hendersons are insisting they'll only work with you on their beach house renovation. They're willing to wait until you're back, but they need to know when that might be." Rosa realized with a start that she hadn't thought about her business in weeks. Once it had been her pride and joy, the center of her life. Now it felt distant, like a story about someone else. "I'm not sure, Emily," she admitted. "I'm still figuring things out." "Well, don't figure it too long," Emily said with a laugh. "We miss you, and clients are piling up. Your talent is wasted milking cows, boss." After hanging up, Rosa sat with her thoughts. Was her talent being wasted here? She loved designing spaces, bringing beauty and function together. It was work that mattered to her. But so did this farm, this life she was building. So did Ben. That evening, she broached the subject as they sat on the porch after dinner. "I got a call from my assistant today. I have clients waiting for me back in the city." Ben's face remained calm, but she saw the flash of worry in his eyes. "I figured your real life would come calling eventually." "This feels real too," Rosa said, looking out at the fields golden in the setting sun. "That's what makes it so hard." Ben reached for her hand. "What do you want, Rosa?" It was the question he'd asked her that first week, the question that had become their touchstone. But this time Rosa had an answer. "I want both," she said. "My work and this." She squeezed his hand. "You hope," brightened Ben's eyes. "Both might be possible. Golden Acres is only an hour from the city. People commute farther than that every day." Rosa's heart quickened. "Are you suggesting I could live here and work there?" Ben nodded. "If that's what you want. Or maybe you could work from here part of the time. Set up an office in the spare room. Take on fewer clients but more meaningful projects." The possibilities opened before her. Not either or, but both. Not giving up one dream for another, but finding a way to weave them together. "It could work," Rosa said, feeling excitement build. "I could go into the city 2 or 3 days a week for meetings and site visits. Work from here the rest of the time. The farmhouse could use your designer's eye anyway," Ben said with a smile. "It's been the same since my mother's day." Rosa laughed. "Are you giving me permission to redecorate?" "I'm asking for your help," Ben corrected. "This could be our project together." The word hung between them, full of promise. "Ben," Rosa said softly, "are you asking me to stay? Not just for now, but ... "Yes," he said simply. "I love you, Rosa. I know it hasn't been long, but I'm sure about how I feel. I want you in my life, not just as a guest passing through, but as a partner." Rosa's heart swelled. "I love you too," she whispered, the words feeling right and true. "I wasn't looking for this for you, but now I can't imagine my life without you." Ben stood, pulling her gently to her feet. "Then stay. We'll figure out the details together." Rosa stepped into his arms, feeling as if she'd found her place in the world. "Yes," she said. "I'll stay." Ben's hands framed her face, his eyes asking a silent question. Rosa answered by rising on her tiptoes, bringing her lips to his. Their first kiss was sweet and tender, a promise exchanged without words. When they broke apart, Ben's smile was brighter than she'd ever seen it. "I've been waiting to do that for weeks." "Worth the wait?" Rosa asked, her own smile matching his. "Definitely," Ben said, kissing her again. "But let's not wait so long for the next one." The following week, Rosa drove into the city to meet with Emily and check on her apartment. It felt strange to be back, the noise and pace jarring after the quiet of the farm. Her apartment seemed smaller somehow, and emptier, despite being filled with expensive furniture and art. She spent the day at her design studio, reconnecting with her team and reviewing projects. By afternoon, she had a plan. She would take on select clients, work remotely when possible, and come into the city twice a week. Her business would become smaller but more focused, allowing her to balance it with her new life at Haven Hill Farm. As she packed some clothes and personal items to take back to the farm, Rosa found her wedding dress still hanging in her closet. Once it had represented all her dreams. Now it was just a beautiful dress, nothing more. On impulse, Rosa called her mother. "Mom, what would you think about donating my wedding dress to that charity that provides prom dresses to girls who can't afford them? The dress you've been dreaming of since you were 16. Her mother asked, surprised. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Rosa said. "It should make someone happy, not sit in my closet as a reminder of what didn't happen." "You sound different," her mother observed. "Happier I am," Rosa admitted. "I'm in love, Mom, for real this time." Her mother was quiet for a moment. "With the farmer, Ben?" "Yes, he's a good man, the best I've ever known." "Your father was a good man too," her mother said softly. "Not flashy like Mark, but solid, dependable." She paused. "When can I meet this Ben of yours?" Rosa felt a weight lift from her shoulders. How about Sunday dinner at the farm? I'd like that, her mother said, and Rosa, I'm happy for you. When Rosa returned to Havenhill Farm that evening, the sight of the familiar farmhouse filled her with joy. Ben was waiting on the porch, and she ran to him like coming home after a long journey. Welcome back, he said, holding her tight. How was the city? Good, Rosa said, but better to be here. I have a plan for my business, and my mother is coming for Sunday dinner to meet you. Ben looked momentarily nervous. I should clean the house, Rosa laughed. The house is fine. She'll love you. They spent the next few days preparing for her mother's visit. Rosa showed Ben how to make her mother's favorite dessert, a flan that had been passed down through generations of her family. Ben cleaned every inch of the farmhouse, though Rosa assured him it wasn't necessary. Sunday arrived sunny and perfect. Rosa's mother, Alina, pulled up in her sensible sedan just after noon. She was a petite woman with Rosa's same dark hair, now streaked with silver. So this is the famous farm, Alina said as she hugged Rosa. Her eyes took in the fields, the garden, the chickens scratching in the yard. It's beautiful. Mom, this is Ben Walker, Rosa said, drawing Ben forward. Ben, my mother, Elena Lindners. Ben extended his hand, but Elena bypassed it for a warm hug. Any man who puts that smile on my daughter's face is family to me, she declared. Ben's nervous tension visibly eased. It's a pleasure to meet you. Mrs. Lindners. Rosa talks about you all the time. Alina, please, she insisted. Mrs. Lindners makes me sound so old. They shared a meal on the porch, the table set with Ben's mother's good dishes and flowers from the garden. Alina told stories about Rosa as a child, making Ben laugh and Rosa blush. Ben shared tales of growing up on the farm with his brother David. The conversation flowed easily, three people connecting across differences of age and background. After dinner, Ben excused himself to check on a new calf born the day before, leaving Rosa and her mother alone. I like him, Alina said as soon as Ben was out of earshot. He looks at you the way a man should look at the woman he loves. He's special, Mom, Rosa said. Different from anyone I've ever known. Alina reached over to pat Rosa's hand. Your father would have approved. He always said the right man for you would be one who saw your light and helped it shine brighter, not one who wanted to shape you into his idea of perfect. Tears stung Rosa's eyes. Her father had passed away 5 years ago, but his wisdom still guided them. I wish Dad could have met Ben. He would have loved this place too, Elena said, looking around. The peace of it, the simplicity. When Ben returned, Elena insisted on seeing the new calf. He led them to the barn, where the wobbly-legged calf stood beside its mother, both watching the visitors with curious eyes. She's beautiful, Elena exclaimed. What's her name? Ben looked at Rosa. I thought Rosa might want to name her. Rosa considered the little calf, with its big eyes and spotted coat. Hope. She decided her name is Hope. Ben's smile told her he understood the significance of the name. New beginnings, second chances, hope for the future. As the sun began to set, Elena prepared to leave. You'll bring Ben to Sunday dinner at my house next week, she told Rosa. It wasn't a question. We'd love to come, Ben answered, his arm around Rosa's shoulders. After Elena left, Rosa and Ben sat on the porch, swing, watching the first stars appear in the darkening sky. Your mother is wonderful, Ben said. I see where you get your strengths. She likes you, Rosa told him. She doesn't approve of many people, so take it as a high compliment. Ben chuckled. I will. He grew serious. It means a lot to me, Rosa, having your mother's blessing, building these connections. Rosa leaned her head on his shoulder. I was thinking about what you said, about making the farmhouse our project together, and I'd like that, not changing everything. It has history and character that should be preserved, but updating some things, making it ours. Ben kissed the top of her head. I like the sound of that, ours. The words settled between them, comfortable and right. They sat in peaceful silence as night fell fully, the only sounds the chorus of cicadas and the gentle creak of the porch swing. 2 months after Rosa's tearful arrival at Havenhill Farm, she stood in the garden admiring the late summer bounty. Tomatoes hung heavy on their vines, zucchini sprawled across the ground, and beans climbed trellises in neat rows. She'd helped plant much of it, and there was satisfaction in seeing the results of her labor. Ben approached from the barn, wiping his hands on a rag. Checking on your handiwork, he asked, coming to stand beside her. Our handiwork, Rosa corrected with a smile. I was just thinking how much has changed since I first came here. Good changes, Ben asked, though he knew the answer. The best, Rosa assured him, turning to face him. I came here broken, Ben. You helped me heal, but you also helped me grow into someone stronger than I was before. Ben's eyes were warm with love. You did the growing. I just provided the space. Rosa shook her head. You provided more than space. You provided kindness when I needed it most. Understanding without judgment, love without conditions. Ben took her hands in his. And you brought life back to this farm. Before you came, I was just going through the motions, surviving but not really living. You reminded me what joy feels like. Rosa felt tears well up, but they were happy tears. We saved each other. I think that's how it's supposed to work, Ben said. The best relationships are the ones where both people make each other better versions of themselves. Rosa nodded, thinking how different this was from her relationship with Mark. With Mark, she'd always felt she had to be perfect to fit a certain mold. With Ben, she could be authentically herself, strengths, flaws, and all. "I have something for you," Ben said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small box, not velvet like Mark's had been, but carved wood, smooth and warm. "Open it." Rosa took the box, her heart quickening. Inside was a ring, but not a diamond. It was a simple band of silver, with a small blue stone set into it. "It was my grandmother's," Ben explained. "The stone is lapis lazuli. It's supposed to represent truth and deep love." Rosa looked up at him, her heart in her eyes. Ben ... He took the ring from the box and held it between them. "This isn't a proposal, not yet. It's too soon for that, and we both know it. But it is a promise. A promise that when the time is right, when we're both ready, I'll ask you properly." Tears spilled down Rosa's cheeks. "It's perfect," she whispered. "And yes, I accept your promise." Ben slipped the ring onto her right hand, not an engagement, but a commitment nonetheless. "I love you, Rosa Linders. I love you too, Ben Walker," she replied, rising on her tiptoes to kiss him. Later that evening, they sat on the porch swing, Rosa's head on Ben's shoulder, his arm around her. The stars were bright overhead, and fireflies danced in the fields. The silver ring caught the moonlight as Rosa moved her hand. "You know," she said softly, "when I first came here, I thought my life was over, that I'd never be happy again." Ben kissed her temple, and now, Rosa smiled, feeling a contentment she'd never known before. "Now I know it was just beginning." She thought about the winding road that had led her here, the wrong turn down a gravel road. The tears that had brought her to Ben's gate. What had seemed like the worst moment of her life had actually been the first step toward the best. "You kept your promise," she said, looking up at him. "What promise?" "The first thing you ever said to me. Come in. I'll turn your tears into smiles." Ben's eyes crinkled with his smile. "So I did. And you know what?" Rosa said, reaching up to touch his face. "You didn't just turn them into smiles. You gave them a reason." As they sat together in the peace of the summer night, Rosa knew without doubt that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The path ahead wasn't perfectly clear. They still had details to work out, challenges to face. But they would face them together, day by day, season by season, here at Haven Hill Farm, with Ben beside her. Rosa had found more than a safe place to land after heartbreak. She'd found home, she'd found love, she'd found herself. And as Ben held her close under the starry sky, Rosa knew that the tears that had brought her to his gate had led to the most beautiful smile of all, the smile of a heart finally, truly happy.